All right, welcome back to another episode of Prepper Talk Radio. We're super excited to be in the studio again, and we've got all three of us here. We've got Scott and Shane and myself, Paris Clough, in the studio today. Super excited to talk about the topic we're going to be talking about today, which is some of the things that have been happening in the news and some of the stuff that's going on around the world with droughts and some of the shortages and some of the things that are happening in nature. But before we do that, I want to jump in and just remind you to go to our website at preppertalkradio.com. We've done some revamping there and got some fun and exciting things to share with you there. So make sure you go there and click on the resources tab, get in on the email list so that you're available whenever we have any updates or anything going on. We'll shoot out an email. And especially when we have any deals or any things that we want to kind of get out to everybody. Join our Facebook page as well at Prepper Talk Radio. And then on that page, you'll see an opportunity for you to go click a link to join our group. And our Facebook group, we're having some great conversations in there. And then also remember that to help support the show, to keep us going, keep us moving forward, we made a deal with Jase Medical and their Jase case. If you go and pick up a Jase case at jasemedical.com, it's got all the antibiotics you're going to need for most of the major illnesses that you'll have. And it's got about a year's supply there. Actually, you shouldn't have that many. If you use it sooner than a year, you got way too many diseases and things that you need to be worried about. But based on the natural course of illnesses and whatnot, it's got about a year's worth of stuff in that Jase case. And you get a $10 off coupon code if you use the code PrepperTalk. So make sure you go to jasemedical.com and use Prepper Talk as the coupon code and get $10 off your Jase case. But super excited to talk about some of the things that are going on in the news. Actually, I mean, it's kind of a weird way to say that we're excited about droughts and other things.
Talk about famine and pestilence.
Maybe we're not as, but we're excited to be here to talk with you about it and keep the information going. But Scott, Shane, and myself, we're excited to be here today. So I think one of the first ones that I wanted to talk about was on Zero Hedge. And maybe I can do a screen share here real quick, or maybe not. But on Zero Hedge, the title here is "A Horrifying Drought is Causing Widespread Crop Failures Throughout the U.S. and Europe." Well, that's right up our alley.
Well, it's interesting. Like we here in Utah have been dealing with the drought for the last 7 years. And it's varying degrees of pain that we've had to tolerate. This year has been the worst. We've got, in our area where I live, we were only allowed to water our lawn once a week when they finally did turn on the water. Now we're finally up to 2 times a week because we had more rain. But the problem we have is not only is there a drought, but we're also losing most of our water because California is changing their power consumption. They've shut down all the nuclear power. They've shut down so many different other systems that they were using to get power. And so that means they're using hydropower more than anything else, and as well as solar and wind. And so it's causing more problems, drought problems for farmers along the way, farmers in California, farmers in Nevada, farmers in Arizona and in Utah. And that's just the western region. Now you look at what's going on in Kansas and Tennessee and Missouri, and they've had flooding. We had flooding in Moab last week. Mm-hmm. Like everything is so dry that when it does rain a little bit, it's catastrophic. Well, this wasn't a little bit of rain. I mean, they had a couple feet of water rushing down the middle of Moab Street.
And flash floods in Zion as well.
Like crazy. And so I was coming back from a family trip 2 weekends ago, and we had flash flooding on the top of Soldier Summit. At the top of the mountain, we had flash flooding, and it shut down the whole freeway, Highway 6. Shut it down for a couple of hours, and we thankfully just missed it. Like they'd finished cleaning up and pushing what was left of the mud and debris and waters off the street by the time we got to it. But that's nothing compared to what's going on, not just in the central states, but all over the world. I mean, France is being devastated. And I don't believe any of the droughts are really truly natural. Look at Indeed.com and you can find jobs for cloud seeding. Mm-hmm. They're looking for pilots for cloud seeding in Minnesota. What for what purpose? What nefarious job is this, right? Mm-hmm. If I was Gru and I had my minions, that's the job I'd be applying for.
Well, last year China came out and said, "Oh, we can control the weather. We can in their country in particular, where they were specific to, that we can have as much water as we want, but yet they're in a huge drought as well. The rivers are running dry. I mean, I know you've got some other articles there, Paris, that talk about that as well. So I don't want to jump ahead too much, but it is at least somewhat concerning or somewhat confusing right now, in that here in Utah we have it's kind of the wet weather season. It's the we've got the moisture coming in, and so every evening we have storms here. We get some rain, some nice summer storms. Out at my property, it's nice and green. We've had enough rain all summer to where it keeps the grass green out there. I haven't had to irrigate really at all. So it is kind of confusing what we're seeing here. We're seeing drought, we're seeing floods, and I think that's, again, kind of like you're saying, part of the agenda, to where it's creating confusion. And that's also happening with the propaganda we're fed in the news and such. It's you're seeing both sides. So which is true, right? Are we really seeing a drought? Here down in my neck of the woods, cities haven't put out any concerns about water or anything like that, and so unless you're looking for these things, which the trouble is with that is that why you go looking for bad stuff? Why you go looking for trouble, right? Don't you want to just be happy and not worry about things? Or are you trying to worry about things? Are you trying to give yourself a heart attack and a stroke, right? Because you're inducing all this worry into your life. But we know that's not the case. That's not why we're here. We're not here. We're here to raise a warning voice, right? And if you're not watching, you're not looking, you can't prepare adequately. So we don't want this to come across as fear mongering, anything like that. It's really just reporting the news, right? It's just reporting. It's talking about. We're not reporters. Just talking about what's going on out there, because we see one thing. At least for me, I see one thing, and then I read another thing, and of course, you see the videos and from all over the world about the droughts and everything, and it's really very concerning. But then others may say, well, that's over there. How is that going to affect us over here?
Well, if you want to see how it's affecting us over here, we're shipping money to the UK. We're shipping money to almost every country as a government, primarily to the Ukraine. Those 87,000 IRS agents that have been trained, they need to go over there and start looking to find all the money that's missing. And that's where they're going to find it.
Help fight that war, at least.
But if you're going to do any auditing, that's the auditing I'm suggesting.
Yeah,
as well.
Exactly. But look at what's going on. Okay, so I've got friends in Texas who there's reports, you've probably all seen this. People they're selling off cattle at record lows because they don't have enough water to keep them hydrated and keep them fed.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I've got a friend he's got 2 springs on his property. He's like, man, I'm so glad I've got these because they just eliminated city water for our entire county.
What?
I'm like, what? Like, what do you mean? And he goes, there's no water to be from the city to be put onto your
lawn
crops.
or your crops or anywhere. Yeah, you can't use culinary for irrigating or anything.
They're still allowing water on the yards, but not on the crops. I'm like, that's
weird.
Suspicious.
Well,
I use less water.
That does make a little bit of sense in that I've got a culinary water connection on my property, but everyone else irrigates with their water shares. They've got the ditch company here, ditch company there, irrigation if they got wells. And we're in the second driest state in the nation, right? So water is a big deal here in Utah, obviously.
Or so they tell us.
What a time to not be number one, right?
Yeah, exactly. Don't want to be number one, but that does make a little bit of sense to me. Like, okay, I only have a certain allotment of it's 10,000 gallons for my base rate out of my property. And then after that, it's considerably more expensive per 1,000 gallons because they want to discourage you from irrigating with culinary water, right?
Yeah.
Whereas ditch water, certain wells and shares, they're not treated water. It's not tested, treated culinary water. So, I mean, that makes a little bit of sense, but it just tells me that things are getting tighter. Things are getting more critical, to where before it's like, just use your water however you want, wash down your driveways and let it run down the gutter, and now we just have to look at it a lot more carefully and be more careful with our usage.
Yeah. Well, my buddy in St. George said that the flooding in the streets was up to his knees.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, you can wash off your driveway with that for sure. right? But
It's mud. It's mud water.
Yeah.
Like it's
Yeah.
like now he's got
Cover
to
your
sweep
grass
the
up.
whole thing off because they don't have enough water to spray it off. Like,
yeah,
but then you have on the flip side of it, you've got Eastern Kentucky, Greater St. Louis, Illinois, Missouri, South Virginia, West Virginia, and then we just talked about Las Vegas and southern Utah, like that have had floods since July, all since July.
yeah.
We're seeing and hearing more and more like crap hitting the fan on a
The
daily,
extremes
right?
of dry and
Yeah.
extremes of wet. Yeah.
Which as faithful Christians, like we knew this was coming. We've been planning for this our whole life. And the purpose of the podcast is to help people who haven't been planning to not see this and hear this and freak out, but say, hey, there are things you can do today. You should have started 20 years ago, but there are things you can do today to offset these things and improve your situation. And that's why we do the podcast is it's that last warning call before the final buzzer.
Yeah, in this article, Paris, you brought up the Zero Hedge article, basically just comes down to them saying, in 2023, there simply is not going to be enough food for everyone. So there's your key words to know what to prepare for, right?
Well, and who's telling us that?
Well, it's this particular writer, but yeah, they got it from somewhere.
So the United Nations has made announcements.
Yep, that's true.
Right here it says, and it's going to have serious implications for 2023.
The White House has made statements. The French, the Russian, the India, Africa, they've all, like, governments all over the world are making these statements saying there's not going to be enough food to go around. And it's not going to be like all the food's gone. It's going to be a lot of the different staple items, the things that you're used to, the specialty stuff. A lot of the specialty stuff's going to be gone.
Well, and we're still exporting a fair amount of food as well. And last crop report I heard, specific to the drought-stricken areas of like North Dakota and I think parts of Georgia and such, where the corn crops are about 50% of normal.
Yeah.
So what is corn used for? It's used in everything, from our corn syrup.
And our corn crops aren't for food. Our corn crops are, well, not for us. They're for cattle consumption.
And that's a big part of it, yeah. And then lots exported as well. And
I went to Walmart to go shopping this weekend, and I wanted to make some mashed potatoes. So I looked for the russet potatoes. And we're, in Utah, we're south of Idaho. We should have an abundance of potatoes.
Yeah.
And it was gone. Like there was no potatoes. I went to another Walmart market. They had no russet potatoes either. I wasn't sure if it was just Walmart, didn't go to any other line, but it was crazy to me to have. I asked the guy, I said, hey, are you getting any potatoes in? And he says, no, we haven't had them in for a couple of days. And I don't know when we're getting them in. And he's like, and I said, is that strange to you? He's like, yeah, actually, it really is kind of weird to me. I don't understand why we don't have potatoes.
Well, I believe the Idaho harvest is going to be coming up here soon. I think as soon as the cooler weather hits.
All the food that we're eating in the produce section is a year old when it gets here. Like we're not eating any of the food in the produce section.
Or comes from out of the country, comes from Mexico and South America and so forth.
Well, that's why if there's a year delay, that's why this article is saying there's going to be serious ramifications potentially in 2023.
And the White House aide that was talking about it, she said that this is the worst and most unprecedented food disaster in world history.
Yet, what advice do they give us? None.
They don't give you any.
None.
They don't give you any recommendations. They're just telling you it's coming. And what my recommendation is this: get the most affordable food you can get now and stock up if you haven't already done it. The most expensive foods are your freeze-dried foods, followed by your dehydrated foods, followed by your processed canned foods and stuff like that. And then hopefully, like, the least expensive foods are going to be your grains, obviously rice, wheat, oats, your produce, anything you can grow yourself. And all of that stuff that you can can yourself is going to be the best value that you're going to be able to have. If you have room in your yard for some fruit trees, you better be planting those things now. And I would even say, don't go to the nursery and buy them. I would go to your neighbor that has good fruit producing trees and see if you can do what's it called, air grafting? No,
Just grafting of branches.
so it's not a true grafting, but you're actually air rooting. Have you guys seen this?
Yeah,
It's
I've seen that.
fantastic. You can
Oh, no.
take a mature tree that's producing fruit and take a portion of it off, and it's producing fruit for you the next year. And the way they do that is they strip the bark, they put this rooting stuff on it, so it's air rooting. They wrap it in soil, and then they wrap it in saran wrap and water it. And after about 3 weeks, it's got strong enough roots growing in that little bundle that you can cut it off and go plant it. And the next season, you have fruit. You're not have to wait 3 to 5 years.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow, that's awesome.
The point is to take this seriously and take it into your own hands, right?
Mhm.
Is be responsible for your own needs. And you know, one comment that I had this week from an individual was that, well, yeah, we're having droughts here, but you know, we get our food from other countries as well, right? We import food, which is true. However, per some of those other articles you sent over, Italy has lost up to 80% of their harvests. Not all crops. Wheat has, wheat is down significantly in Europe, all over Europe, Italy, France, Germany as well. Let's see what else I've got here. 64% of the United Kingdom is in drought, and they're expecting at least a 15% lower yield. 15% doesn't seem like a lot, but when you're pushing the boundaries anyway, and you lose 15% of that, that's a big chunk, and it's going to at least lead to price increases, if not making it hard to get food.
You know, if you've been following us for a while, you're probably saying to yourself, well, I already have my food storage because these guys have been talking about it for so long. No big deal. And that's true. That's where you're supposed to be. Like, yeah, I don't like to have to use my food storage because that means that we're in a situation where it's a little bit more serious. However, I'm so grateful I have it.
I've been using my food storage for 3 years.
Well, I know, but you're in a situation where that's legit and you're
Right?
using it for the reason why it's intended. But you know, when you're pulling from your savings, you're like, okay, that's because my income or my, isn't where it needs to be. So you're in a situation, but grateful for that cushion, grateful for that resource that you have. So, you know, if we're going to have food shortages, man, I am so grateful that I have my 90-day pantry already built up. I'm so grateful that I have, 30 cans of rice and beans in my other long-term storage already. I already have stuff, and so grateful am I to have already got this in place. And that's kind of the idea is when you see this, it's a little bit of that validation, like you're vindicated a little bit, like, yeah, I'm not crazy. See, the world does have these things. And then you're like, well, but I'm not panicking like some of these other people might be, because I've been prepared. I'm been ready. And when the time comes when the time comes for a decision, the time for preparation is past.
Yeah. And
that's why I'm grateful that I'm already prepared. And should I get more? Yeah. I feel like, there's always more to get. Mm-hmm. And so, but I'm grateful for what I have. And I'm super, grateful that I've been doing this long enough that I've got a stash built up that if this does hit and affects the world like it's going to, or like they're saying it's going to, I'm not as worried as I would be had I not had the storage in place. Does that make sense?
Well, and what's nice is like we've been using our food storage. It hasn't been 3 years. We've been off and on using it for 5 years almost. But during that time, we had a year of like super plenty, and we were able to restock a lot of stuff. That's the whole idea. Like the food storage, the water storage, the preps, everything you have, it's for when those hard times hit. And it's always out of the blue, unless you're like me and you work for yourself and you're kind of switching gears a lot over the last few years, trying to find your new thing. Like, this is what I do. I'm a guy that does this for a career, right? I'm figuring that out. Like, but I guess I'm not figuring that out is the problem.
That's fun to do.
But the thing is like you look at your thing, the foods that you eat all the time, and it's mostly the canned foods, mostly the produce, mostly the breads, all the everything's pre-made for you mostly, right? The box stuff, and that stuff stores great for a few years. And if you're rotating it right, that's great. And then you've got your freeze-dried that you really don't touch, theoretically, right? A lot of people say you don't touch it until you absolutely need it. Marcelo, our good friend over at the Food Storage Depot, that's his thing. He's like, you don't touch this ever. It's the most expensive food you buy, and you don't eat it until you absolutely have to. And I'm like, I've been rotating my freeze-dried in with all my other stuff for years. that's just who I am. That's how I was raised. I use a different approach because it's like I still spent less money on the freeze-dried food I have now than what people are spending to go buy new freeze-dried food today.
That's true.
So I'm like, it's a hedge against inflation. It's a hedge against economic disasters, right?
Really
Having
is.
water is a hedge against drought. But it's like, here are the things that are the most like valuable things to have. Nutrient dense wise foods, it's your leafy vegetables. Hey, grow a garden. Find a way to grow something.
Mm-hmm.
Do a garden tower. Legumes, quinoa, berries, cruciferous vegetables, including broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, avocados. I killed my avocado plant. I'm so distraught over that. Sweet potatoes. My sweet potato this year, oh my gosh. I have like 33 sweet potatoes in the ground right now off of
awesome.
one potato that just keeps giving me shoots. I'm like, well, dang. I've got them in the front yard now, and I'm testing to see if the deer are going to try to eat them because even the leaves on those are edible. So I'm just like, put them everywhere. And this
nice.
potato just keeps giving. It's the sweet potato that is the sweetest, kindest gift. It just keeps giving.
Yeah,
So,
I always miss some potatoes every year, so I rarely plant anything. They just come back. No,
right.
There's already potatoes in the ground. They just come back.
You just
but
find them later. You're like, oh, hey,
exactly. It's like dig them back up, leave a few in the ground for next year. It just comes back.
That's awesome.
They're perennials, right? But
that's so awesome.
But I wanted to bring up, obviously, the reason to grow a garden is to augment your food storage, right? You don't want to just eat that out and you don't have anything left, but have the greens in your garden. And so, but I wanted to bring up this article that I had come across. I guess it's been a couple of weeks, and it prompted me to even double down on my food storage. If you want to search this, it's the American Psychological Association, The Psychology of Hunger. You can just Google that; it'll come right up really quick. Back in 1944, 36 young men took up a study. It was a hunger study. They were basically given World War II rations, if I'm remembering this correctly, and I don't remember the duration. But the point I wanted to make here was that every single one of these volunteers thought about cannibalism during this study. That the minimal calories they were given, which I don't remember exactly how much it was, but it was absolutely terrifying to me. Even one of these individuals chopped 3 of their fingers off in this voluntary study. That's how difficult it is to suffer with hunger. And I basically decided I'm going to double down on what I have already. So I've already made additional steps in getting more food storage. And I'm just focusing on the long-term basic grains and such, not the expensive
wheat,
stuff. Right?
Rice.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's going to last 20, 30 years. And additionally, I wanted to mention, if you're buying your food now, you are also hedging inflation, right? You're making an investment, not technically an investment, but you buy your canned goods at say $1 now. Next year, there might be $2. You've saved 100%. You've made 100% on your investment. You call it an investment. And we know inflation is going to continue to increase, especially on food products. So if you have dollars in the bank and you've got some savings, it's probably a good idea to sink some of that into an investment of food for the future.
Yeah, money in your savings account is going to be better spent with cans in your pantry. Swapped out for
outweigh bank accounts right now. In my opinion, 10 to 1. Food assets are the best. It's the best emergency fund you can invest in, right, for yourself. And we're not investment advisors. We're not giving investment advice. We probably shouldn't be calling it investments. But for those of you who are listening and paying attention to this, like, if you know what you eat on a weekly basis and you don't have more than a week's worth of food in your house, but you've got money in the bank, you've got $300-400, go spend it on bulking up those weeks, adding extra weeks. If you've got $1,000, $3,000, $4,000 extra dollars, extend those weeks. Create that home store, and don't just get food, but like also think about things such as your soaps, your cleaning supplies. Get those as well, because it's going to put you in a better situation no matter what. Like, that's what we use all the time. We rotate through everything we have. Nothing in our house is really that old because we keep rotating it. And it's the first in, first out, FIFO. Not fee, fi, fo, fum, but FIFO. Keep rotating, keep on top of it. And it's easier way of life. Like you put together your grocery list upstairs, you're like looking at everything. Okay, here's all the stuff we need this week. And then you go into your pantry or you go downstairs to your food storage room or whatever, and you shop from there first. And if you take it out of there, circle it. Because then when you go to the store, the circled stuff, you're putting in the basement when you bring it home.
Yep.
Or in the food storage. And
Restocking.
Right? You're restocking. And that way like, oh, I'm emptying this. Where's this? Oh, this goes downstairs. Or this goes to my food pantry. It just makes so much sense. And I don't know why people don't do that. I know they don't teach it in school anymore. But there's so many things we can do to be a little bit more resilient, a little bit better off. And there's still, right now, there's still stuff you can go get. If you wait 6 months, you're not going to have the benefit of right now.
And a lot of people are of the mindset sometimes, like both of you shared this already in the podcast today. So a lot of people are of the mindset, well, we're not in an area where we should be affected by those things, or we're not in a situation where we have to worry about floods, or we have to worry about this, that, or the other. Well, let me share this article with you on the screen here. And this is Scott, you talked about this earlier about the Kentucky disaster. And it shows this quote here. It says, "We thought we were safe." One of the Kentucky residents there said, who was affected by this flood that was there. And the reason why they thought they were safe, as you scroll down and you read, is because they said, we weren't, it says right here, we weren't in the flood zone, so we thought we were safe. I never would have dreamed it would get that high. And we're seeing more and more of these scenarios. How many more of these scenarios have to happen where things are happening that are completely out of the ordinary, completely just out of left field, and we're still going to say, well, I don't have to worry about it because that doesn't happen in my area? Well, Mother Nature's like, hold my root beer. It seems like, or these cloud seeders, which we know is actually a legitimate thing that is happening in the world. They're like, all right, hold my root beer. I'm going to make something happen in your area, and you're going to see how unprepared or prepared you are. Right. And that's the reality. Is if we have to, now, again, you can't be prepared for everything all the time, but you can have some very significant preps that will cover a multitude of issues. You have some generic preps that will cover us. And we've talked about this in other podcasts where, you can have a generic level of preparation that will cover a myriad of experiences. So just be prepared, because you don't know. We never know when it's really going to happen or really going to come.
Yeah, here's another aspect that I think we should talk about real briefly is, and I just got this from Ice Age Farmer. If you're not following him on Telegram, you should be. He just sent out this graphic. It says, shorten your food chain. So, we talk about growing our own garden, but there's a lot of other options other than just growing our own garden and then having our own food storage. There are local farmers. We've been going to the farmers market a number of times this summer. It's been great. We get great fresh produce rather than going to the grocery store where who knows where it comes from. Mm-hmm. And you can shorten your food chain. If you go to his Ice Age Farmer Telegram, you can see this graphic he put up there. So you can shorten it by going to farmers markets, which the supermarket is obviously the most complex of the food chains, right? It's who knows where it's coming from, to the distributor's warehouse, to the company's warehouse, to the store, and then eventually to your home. So shorten that chain. Find other local. Like I live near a little country town, which there's gardens and people sell their produce and their eggs. Go find someone who's selling eggs, and either maybe trade with them, and start practicing that bartering capability and see how that works. Or pay dollars for it too. But
go download the app Farmish. Have you guys heard about? I think I've told you guys about that.
Yeah, you did mention that.
It's growing like crazy. It's got over 160,000 people posting their eggs, their garden stuff, like anything that they're selling locally is going to be found on there. So if you need something, check there. If you don't know where the farmer market is, check Farmish, right? See what's out there. Because people are putting the farmers markets on there. Like there's so many other resources. Do a Google search. You'll find them. Map it. Find it out. There's so many options. I agree 100%. Shorten that supply chain, and you're going to be way more resilient.
I just downloaded Farmish. Opening it up
Awesome.
right now.
I got mine right here.
Let
Boom.
me share the screen real quick because I see it right here. I brought up the website. You can go to, it says getfarmish.com, and you can download Farmish, the marketplace app for local food and farms. That's awesome.
Nice.
So I've got organic pasture raised eggs, like organic, $5 a dozen. You know how much I'm spending for a dozen eggs that have been junctified at the store? $4.99.
Yeah.
It's the same price. It's way healthier. And that's
Right.
in my city. Like I have 6 farmers markets within 15 minutes of my house.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And then I've got 28 listings just north of me in the next within 45 minutes of my house. So like there's so many things, maybe not in your area, but like find what's in your area and shorten that supply chain, and you'll be surprised because those are the guys that are going to have stuff when Walmart's out of food and your Safeway or every, Buc-ee's is whatever is out of food.
Mm-hmm.
Your Publix. I don't know. What are the different grocery stores all over the place? You guys, like, your local area may run out of stuff. It may not run out of everything, but do you want to eat formula as a grown adult? I don't.
Ooh.
That might be your only option. You might have to eat baby food out of little tiny cans. Who knows? Or little jars. Don't let that be your only option.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
I'm just cruising around the app here.
I got you guys so distracted.
I got awesome. Quail chicks on here, fresh quail eggs. Actually, just the next town over. Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, we're just over 30 minutes on the podcast right now. We're trying to keep it tight and informative for everybody. Any last minute thoughts anybody wants to have before we wrap it up?
I think I've yammered enough.
Stop dreaming about it. Stop thinking about it. Just go do it.
Yeah. Like you said, don't even think about it. So we appreciate you guys being on with us for the last 30 minutes or so. The reality is that the world is changing and we can't put our heads in the sand. We have to be awake and aware. We have to be looking around. We have to be open to what's going on. And we need to make some changes sometimes. I know it's scary. I know it's no fun. I would love to go back to the 80s or 90s when everything made sense, at least to me. And then, but the world's changing and we have to make the changes necessary to be able to go along with it and survive and thrive in it. So our goal is to help you stay ready and be ready and to really make sure that you are aware and ready for whatever life can throw at you. So once again, jump to our website at preppertalkradio.com. Join our group on Facebook at Emergency Prep and Self-Reliance. And then also get on our email lists. And please remember to check out Jase Medical and get your antibiotics, get your supplies, and make sure that you're ready to go in that regard as well. So thanks so much for being with us this last 30 minutes. And we're signing off, and we'll see you on the next podcast, guys. Take care.